Top of the agenda tonight, documentary proof the substance at the centre of the Essendon drug investigation was not prohibited. 5 weeks ago, I tabled evidence of the contradiction between the operational instructions of ASADA and the declaration of WADA regarding the status of AOD 9604. Prior to April 22 this year, multiple parties who inquired about AOD 9604 were informed by ASADA that it was not a prohibited substance under category S2, relating to peptide hormones, growth factors and related substances. The rationale for that ruling was contained in WADA's own instructions, a document relating to the 2012 prohibited list. It reads, "As a reminder, it is stressed that if a designer drug or any other non-approved substance falls into any of the S1 to S9 categories, then it will be deemed to be included in that section. Inclusion in S0 applies only after all the other categories have been considered inadequate. Simply, a substance cannot reside in two categories. Once ASADA included AOD 9604 in S2 in Australia, it was not a prohibited substance. A member of the AFL's anti-doping tribunal made this precise inquiry in February. Tonight, Dr. Andrew Garnham reveals the details on AFL360. Dr. Garnham, did you make an inquiry of ASADA about the status of AOD 9604?
Yes, I did, in early February of this year.
In what capacity did you make that inquiry?
At that time, that was under my role as a member of the AFL Tribunal jury. My role there is with regard to both the performance enhancing and illicit drugs policies. And so I was inquiring so that there was some clarification as to where the matter might be heading.
What were you told by ASADA?
The advice that I had at that time was that AOD 9604 was considered under section S2 of the anti-doping code and was regarded as not prohibited.
Do you know of others who made inquiries at that time, and was that a consistent line from ASADA?
I'm aware that other people within the AFL had been in contact with ASADA. I'm not sure at exactly what time period, and I think given the timing of events in early February, we were all well aware at that stage that the Australian Crimes Commission had been in contact with ASADA at some point and had received the same advice.
In the ACC report, it states on numerous occasions under ASADA's instruction that AOD 9604 is not a prohibited substance. Do you believe that's consistent with the operational advice that was being offered at the time?
That is exactly consistent with my understanding at that stage. And one of the things that I did do at that time in my conversation with ASADA is to explore its status and in particular inquire as to where it would fall under the S0 category, because the S0 category, as I think everybody has come to understand, has been fairly widely interpreted and perhaps sometimes misunderstood, and so it was getting a clear picture as to whether it was possibly considered under that category or it only belonged under S2.
And in what you were told, it does not belong under S0?
Correct. Well, the advice was that it had been considered under S2 and therefore effectively S0 did not come into play. It had a section to which it belonged and therefore further exploration of those issues was not required.
Who did you share that information with?
There was some discussion with people within the AFL, and also at that stage I'd been in contact with members of the Essendon Football Club, and so I had some conversations around that ensued.
What's your professional opinion of AOD 9604?
Look, we can go into a fairly lengthy answer there in terms of something that was developed over several decades as potentially a very useful drug in dealing with obesity. There was a lot of research went into it, very good research. Some of that was funded by the National Health and Medical Research Council. Subsequently, we've had some very, very preliminary laboratory work which has suggested that AOD 9604 may have a beneficial effect on repair of injured cartilage, muscle and bone, and so it's been proposed that it may assist in the management of arthritis and therefore, for example, may assist in the recovery of footballers where they obviously get fairly heavily knocked around in the course of a game, so it just might bring them up a day or two quicker. The evidence for that is very, very preliminary. I understand that it was on the basis of that possibility that it may have been used by a football club, but at this stage, from a scientific perspective, we could really say, look, that evidence is way, way too early to really give it any credence.
Dr. Garnham, let me ask you 3 questions about AOD 9604. When you inquired, was it a prohibited substance according to ASADA?
At that point in time, no.
Do you believe it to be performance enhancing?
We've got no evidence to support that.
Is it harmful to an individual?
Like all drugs, there are some side effects, but we know that those side effects are minimal, and I would regard it, within the context of drugs and other substances that are used, we would regard it as a safe substance.
ASADA knows full well AOD 9604 was not a prohibited substance prior to WADA's statement this year, yet it remains silent to this fact in its interim report. In fact, I believe on multiple occasions the status of AOD 9604 is blacked out. In the cover note dated August 2, ASADA Chief Executive Aurora Andruska stated, in relation to the issue of AOD 9604, ASADA will make a public statement about its proposed approach in all sports to the enforcement of possible anti-doping violations involving this substance that occurred prior to WADA's media release of 22 April 2013. 18 days on, there is still no statement from ASADA. AOD 9604 was administered to Essendon players through injections and a cream. I understand that 38 players signed consent forms, but only 7 expressed the belief they were injected and a further 12 received the cream. It is documented that Stephen Dank was referred by WADA to ASADA to check the status of AOD 9604. I believe Dank maintains he spoke to both ASADA and the Therapeutic Goods Administration before introducing the drug to his regime at Windy Hill. Dank has repeatedly declined my requests to provide documentation to this effect. I will add one other note, is that Dr. Andrew Garnham, subsequent to his inquiry on behalf of the AFL's Anti-Doping Tribunal, was given permission by the AFL to take up a consulting role with Essendon, where he says he's provided independent advice to the players and to the families of players, and has told them on more than one occasion about the status of AOD 9604.
Well, you're trying to get Stephen Dank. The last time I asked Stephen Dank for the documentation was at about 2:30 this afternoon, working on same story separately. He has got documentation, which he has said. People have questioned whether he has got that documentation. What disturbs me, Gerard, and it disturbs me greatly, to be honest, there's several facets of this story that disturbs me greatly. Why hasn't ASADA released a statement? You say it's 18 days on. Why didn't they release a statement long before that? Why wouldn't they?
ASADA clearly should have provided clarity around the status of AOD 9604, and that was complicated first by WADA's statement of 22 April, and as I showed this the previous time, that made no reference to the backdating.
Yeah.
It said in the 2013 prohibited list it was a prohibited substance, and John Fay, he is the one who subsequently said it backdated to January 1, 2011.
Did he clear the issue?
This was no mistake from ASADA.
Yeah.
They never believed that it was prohibited from 1 January 2011.
Why have we been led to believe then that it was a banned substance?
Well, that should be the source of a government inquiry. The Sports Minister should demand an answer tomorrow from ASADA, and ASADA should provide its public statement that it said it would make. It should provide that at the open of business tomorrow.
There's another body involved, Gerard, and that disturbs me as well. For 6.5 months, we have hearing and reading and having media, such as me and other media, chasing stories about AOD. We've spoken about it 100 times. Dr. Andrew Garnham has said that people at the AFL were aware that this was not a banned substance. When we at the Herald Sun wrote a story with allegations or a testimony that Andrew Demetrio, people at Essendon, testimony that Andrew Demetrio tipped off Essendon. You know what the AFL did that day and the next day? They refuted it. The AFL have known from the start of this investigation via Andrew Garnham and others at the AFL that AOD was not a banned substance. That they didn't defend the players. They've let Essendon go from the start of this investigation to tonight. Andrew Demetrio once said, oh, there's an issue with the status. There's not an issue with the status. It is banned. And the AFL knew it was banned.
It is not prohibited.
Not prohibited. Not prohibited. They knew that. When Joe Watson sat on the couch here, said, yeah, well, I took it where our understanding, like just how you explained it, our understanding, we sought expert advice and, yeah, it's not prohibited. Yeah, I used it. The AFL knew it wasn't not prohibited. Joe Watson got absolutely smashed for two and a half weeks and before Andrew Demetrio came out and said there's a status issue. No wonder Tim Watson, the Essendon champion and father of Joe, Gerard, absolutely no wonder that Tim's really, really angry, and he's angry with the AFL because they let his son just absolutely get verbally smashed and spoken about, and they knew the status of this drug. The AFL has let down, in my opinion, the Brownlow medalists at Essendon, but I think in some ways let down the Essendon playing list.
This is ASADA's jurisdiction, so for me it cheats home.
It's a joint investigation.
And the difficulty of this is because ASADA is essentially beholden to WADA, its entire charter is to implement the WADA code, is once WADA moves AOD 9604 to S0 on April 22, then from that moment on, that is how ASADA has to operate. But you can't rewrite history.
No, you cannot.
And I spoke about this 5 weeks ago, and there are those who proposed that this was not right and kept saying S0, S0, S0. It's not. It was S2.
The clarity
it was not prohibited. This is absolutely cut and dried.
Were you aware, I mean, it's interesting, that the clarity that you've pointed out tonight, or Dr. Andrew Garden pointed out tonight, was you can't be on two categories.
Yeah.
And I think people have been confused. If you're not on S2, that does automatically you can be on S0 because it's not fit for human use. How significant is that? Is that admission, that interview with Andrew Garden, how significant is that for the plight of the players?
Well, it's not the only substance at play.
No.
It is the one, and we've said this repeatedly, that is documented, it is admitted, it was administered, and it is said by WADA to be banned. This is the central drug in the middle of this investigation. There's a circumstantial case around thymosin beta-4, but
which is strongly denied by
there's not evidence to support infraction notices on that front. And then there's the mystery Mexican drug from the hyperbaric chamber, which stands there as an issue that is not resolved, and shame on everybody for not being able to bring that to a resolution. But this is the one that, and people keep drawing back to this substance. And athletes, Australian athletes who have been in Moscow this week are posing the question, how can footballers have taken a banned substance and still be allowed to ply their craft? Well, the answer is because it wasn't a banned substance.
ASADA knew that, and the AFL knew that, Gerard, back in February. They knew that. So as day after day of drugs have been named in newspapers, the AFL and ASADA knew that drug was not prohibited, and neither party said anything. And if they hide behind the fact the process had to be played out, that is rubbish. That is rubbish, because when other things leaked out of the investigation, Gerard, the AFL were happy to get on and you know, deny the testimony of others and defend the office holders at the AFL. I'm talking about Andrew Demetrio here. The AFL are happy to do that, but they're not happy to come out knowing that it's not prohibited and allow this to go for 6.5 months without making a statement. That is not right, Gerard. Give me your thoughts.
No, ASADA is going to need to answer why in its interim report it has chosen to black out the status of AOD 9604 whilst the status of other substances are clearly stated.
Right, they can do it. Do you think ASADA should have made an announcement early in this investigation and the AFL should have made it known publicly?
I clearly sheet this home to ASADA. And
so you don't think the AFL
about their process the whole way through?
Yeah, I know that,
mate. The anti-doping is the side of ASADA. The governance is the side of the AFL. And there has been a blurring of the lines, but this is ASADA's jurisdiction.
Massive blurring on the lines, mate. Again, when you were sitting there listening to Andrew Garnham speak to you, when he was saying this, others at the AFL knew. Others at the AFL called ASADA and got the same information. And AFL knew this was happening. And they didn't say anything. I know you want to shed it home to ASADA.
Clearly.
This is a joint investigation, Gerard. joint. These lines are so blurry. Now, if the other drugs emerge, we'll have to deal with them. But I just can't fathom that something was not announced about AOD when the speculation has been animalistic for 6.5 months.
The past 24 hours surrounding Essendon is encapsulated here.
Yeah, who knows where it's going to go? Every day's an adventure.
Essendon are thinking tonight it's a back down from the AFL. Essendon are very set on defending their integrity and honour and everything else in the Supreme Court if it needs to be.
I think it gives us a chance to prepare for the case properly and, you know, gives natural justice a chance to play out.
It was always our advice that if there was to be a request for more time, that we would give more time. I mean, we do want people to be able to have their case heard with the right period of time and not deny anyone natural justice, so it wasn't any surprise to us.
This is an act of maybe reconciliation, Gerard. OK, guys, this is heavy duty. We're getting back to the discussion table. Let's try and negotiate an outcome to avoid Supreme Court action.
I was quite angry, yeah, because of being charged. And I was quite disappointed that it's happened, but very willing to fight.
We're all confident that we'll be playing finals and we'll keep our premiership points. So, yeah, we're looking forward to this week against Carlton.
I don't know how hopeful, but as I've said consistently, with the best intent, it would be preferable to have the matter heard next Monday, particularly to provide certainty for not just the football industry now, all our supporters, but the supporters of the Essendon Football Club.
You've got a burden on the players, you've got the burden on the coaches, and you've got a team that's just, at the moment, is completely cooked.
You've seen your charge sheet.
Yep.
You know what you're charged with. Do you look at that and go, no way? Yes, there are failings in that area.
Yeah. Probably 80% of it, 90% easily. I'd say there's no way I'm responsible for that, and I'm going to accept that easily.
And the 10%?
I don't know what it is. It could be, yeah, just a bit in there, but I'm part responsible. We all are. Like, we're all responsible.
I thought both parties said they wanted a swift resolution to this. Now, it can't be swift if it's 7 months, but God help us, it can't go into next year, can it?
It could. The chairman, Paul Little, is at Windy Hill tonight, where the parents have again been...
For the parents.
The parents are having a...
so they're out there saying... They've been saying to the parents, I think that's their 5th meeting now, 5th meeting, an update. Guys, you've got to believe us, you've got to trust us. Meanwhile, the AFL's got this information and they don't go out there and maybe assure the parents that everything might be OK on AOD 9604. I know you think I'm a dog on a bone here, but I think this is a disgrace, Gerard, and the ASADA should be ashamed of itself. And the AFL has had information and 5 parent nights out at Essendon, and the AFL not once have gone out there and said, hey, parents of these kids, please, mate.
This is the chairman, Paul Little, tonight.
We want to give them some idea of where we think issues are relating to some of the medical advice that we'll also have available to them tonight. So it's an information opportunity for parents. We will answer questions and bring them up to date with the dispute.
Hopefully they've IQ'd the program.